of the RSU 25 School Board to order. All please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Tripp, would you please be kind enough to take the attendance?
Sure. Mr. Foster.
I am here.
Mr. Burgess.
Present.
Mrs. Foster.
Here.
Mr. Frazier.
Here.
Mr. Nealon.
Here.
Mr. Wentworth.
Here.
Mr. Koff.
Here.
And Ms. Atherton Dow.
Here.
You're all present, Cal?
All right. This is the time for public participation. If you are here and you'd like to publicly participate, you may come up and present to us behind the beautiful crystal podium that we have. If you are not here but you would like to publicly comment, you can do so by emailing us for public comment at publiccomment@rsu25.org, or you can phone in for public comment at 307-8099. Seeing as how we don't have a line, I would move to adjustments to the agenda.
All right, and we have a number of adjustments here that came in over vacation here. So and all of them are nominations and resignations. So we're gonna add to L1 under nominations, Callie Willett and Justin Davis for custodians, Daniel Gary for media specialist at the middle school, Keisha Evans, Mark Wardwell, and Jesse Gale, which will be going for volunteers for BMS Wrestling. And then we have Lindsay Gordon being added as a BHS outdoor track assistant coach. And then for resignations, we need to add Bill Everhart, BHS special education.
Okay. Next, we have approval of the minutes. I would look for motion.
I move that we approve the minutes of January 21st, 2025.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes? That is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have communications and correspondence.
So I have one communication for you that came in actually yesterday. It started in your packets. It was from the Department of Labor. I think I spoke with most of you either at facilities or at subcommittee meetings. But between the last board meeting and this board meeting, we had a surprise visit from the Department of Labor, or OSHA, that they do a complete site visit. They went to 4 different buildings. And they were just looking for work safety.
Non-punitive.
What's that?
Non-punitive.
So we had 2. One was non-punitive, which was through MSMA, which we knew about. That happened a week before the Department of Labor showed up, which is punitive. So the timing actually worked out well because we had just kind of gone through it. We hadn't actually gotten the reports back from MSMA. The interesting thing is when the Department of Labor shows up, so it's random, they get given a region for that week, and then they choose a public entity. So public entities, this is an R form of a OSHA visit that the Department of Labor does. And they only focus on adults, basically, because they're looking at workplace safety. So they're not looking at student safety, they're just looking at adult safety within the district. So they went through the central office, Bucksboro High School, Bucksboro Middle School, and the bus garage. And again, just basically went through looking at everything from safety documents, training documents, lockout, tagout procedures, fire extinguishers, blocking exits, you name it, they kind of look at, outlets, extension cords being plugged in where they shouldn't be. Very, very thorough. The gentleman was very, it was actually really nice for someone that's going around trying to find stuff wrong in your, or certain violations. And anytime you have something like this, like the last one that we had was back in 2017. There's violations, like you have this big of a campus, they're always gonna find something. So we actually just got the report back yesterday, and we got 4 citations. I take that, we got 4 citations that had fines attached to them. We got a number of other ones that did not have fines attached to them. For a total, it was $3,400, which is actually quite a bit less than we would have expected when you have these visits. The last couple of times, just kind of looking back at our records, one was like $10,000 and the other one I think was even a little more than that. So in general, it was a really, it's never good when you get fined, right? But in terms of what that we got, it was something that was manageable. I will be sending a letter to the Department of Labor that will be looking for a penalty discussion. So basically, we have a chance to have a correction plan, and if we correct mistakes, they can lessen or eliminate the fines. So even though it's only $3,400, we're gonna fix them anyways. But through that process, we could see a reduction in that $3,400 all the way down to zero potentially. So I'll be sending that in today, and
Can you say what the 4 citations were? Are you allowed to? I don't.
I can. I don't know if I'm gonna remember all of them word for word. One was a lockout, tagout, training record system that we didn't have.
Okay.
One was a hepatitis B vaccination form that we were supposed to have in personnel files that was not in every personnel file. Or a document that tracked that they were in personnel files.
Which is a simple spreadsheet.
So,
So that's easy to
That one
fix.
was pretty easy. There was one where we actually have to post any workplace injuries. in the
Oh,
public.
yeah.
I think it's called a 306A form.
Yeah, for the previous year.
For the previous
From
year.
like December to April.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, so we have to have that there, and then fourth one, I believe, it may have been a data sheet or a training that again, there was a number of citations, I forget what the fourth one was that we got. There was 4 $850 citations.
And those are
So-
pretty simple fixes, it sounds like.
Everything there, the other one was what they call PPE training records, so like for example, we have to train Mike Gross, who teaches industrial arts for us, we have to have him sign off that he's been trained on how to use the equipment in the shop, even though we pay him to train students on how to use the equipment in the shop.
But you have to have,
But we have to have
proof that your
documents,
instructor
right?
knows what they're doing,
Yes.
yeah, that makes sense.
So, again, most of it was all just that type of stuff.
It was mostly paperwork, it
It
wasn't,
was.
that we have
Some safety.
saw blades flying.
No, that's very easily fixable stuff, so maybe that will get reduced.
Yeah, everything there, and two of them we've already fixed. So, we posted the OSHA, the 360A there for them.
That's a pretty easy,
Yeah, we have the hepatitis B.
just set a reminder to remove it in April.
Right, the hepatitis
We'll get
B
digging.
one will get taken care of. And, the one thing that we will be doing is if you actually partner with Safety Works, we'll be bringing them in every 2 years now. So if you bring them in, they will do basically what we had MSMA do, but from the labor side of things. So MSMA came in and looked at students and staff. Again, Safety Works and the Department of Labor, they only look at our working staff. But if we bring them in, they'll do this audit. They'll give us these same citations without any penalty to them. We would then be responsible for correcting them. But if we then have an inspector show up unannounced, like it happened a month ago, we tell them we're working with Safety Works, they verify it, they have to turn around and leave. They actually can't do the inspection.
This is a certain amount of time, right?
It is, right, so I think if we looked at it, if we do it every 2 years, we would kind of be protecting ourselves from being in this situation. What would that cost? It's free. It's free. It is free. Yeah.
Just your time, it's like.
It is a lot of time. When they come in, I mean, they'll take 2 or 3 days of Anthony's time of going through and identifying all the, again, it's worthwhile, but there's, and there obviously could be some cost attached to that if they identify stuff that we have to then fix, but again, it's all,
But we'd have to anyway.
Right,
And get a fine.
yeah. So once I get that, again, we just got that, I will, it was very dense, so I will, collect all those findings and I will put them in a report. When I send my letter back to them, and I'll send it to the board, so you'll have a chance to see all of it as well.
Any further questions for Josh? Superintendent's report. Well, this has been a rather busy February, but there's one thing that I really want to tell everyone about, and that is girls' cheer at the high school.
Yeah.
Boy, are they doing amazing, and they are going to get to go to the New England regionals if we approve their trip, and boy, you better do it. I will be one very unhappy person, and I'm gonna have a lot of mothers who are very unhappy. So don't let that happen today. But the girls came in second in the state, which I don't believe has happened in like 30-something years.
Lori Gilly, I think was the last
So
one.
it's
That was.
been a long
So
time.
20 years.
Might be 20 years, but it's long enough that I wasn't on the school board, which is a pretty shocking thing.
And
So,
I've been given
And they didn't do that well in what, Eastern Maine, or what did they, PDC, or, I mean,
Yeah.
they were like third or
they
something?
were like
and then
third, yeah.
They really came to
And,
the front.
and the way that the scoring goes is so darn tight that I think they won by like 0.4 of a point. It was that close. So, how they were able to do it was they had just a flawless performance. They did everything absolutely perfect. And when you're a small team like our team, it's really easy for the judges to see if we've made a mistake, because there's fewer of you out there. So that's usually one of the reasons why the larger teams do better, is they're able to score points because they can do more things, there's more of them. And it's easier to kind of hide your boo-boos, and so they were really good. But they aren't the only ones that had a good season. The girls' basketball had a really exciting final game that they should be very proud of as well. And it's just been a really great February. And so that is the superintendent's report. Board's chair report. Put on the glasses.
We just.
Next we've got committee reports.
Skip
No,
that.
we just skipped off.
That's okay. You said superintendent's report, but you're really excited about the. So
We've got another adjustment to the agenda.
And your report is more exciting than mine too. No, you're all good. I actually, the only thing I will just say from my report, and first I apologize for sending you the agenda in my email.
I was asleep this morning and I'm like, why can't I get this attachment to open?
Yeah, and Sue pointed out, not only did I send it to you in the email, I also put it in the team drive. because-
Oh,
So,
see, I didn't get to the drive yet.
yeah, but anyways, I will just say, as I said in the first paragraph of my report, obviously there's a lot of media news swirling education, state of Maine, and I certainly have fielded a lot of phone calls, emails. I'm sure you as board members are starting to get a lot of those, and I know some of you have already kind of reached out to me, just kind of looking for some guidance on how to answer some questions from the members from our communities, because you'll hear a lot of different answers to the same question, depending on who you talk to. I just kind of encourage you, if you have questions or you need information, to questions that are coming to you from people, please do not hesitate to reach out to me, and I will try to find you the most up-to-date, relevant information that I can at the time. It is rapidly changing, and so if you have to call me 3 or 4 times a week to make sure that we are up to date with that information, please call me 3 or 4 times, because whatever I tell you on Monday could be different on Wednesday, because it is a very fluid, dynamic situation. One thing that I know our administrators do a great job of, we keep our eye on doing what's best for kids, right? And trying to make sure that we are providing an education for them, regardless of what the landscape around us looks like. And that's what we're just gonna continue to do. There's 99.9% of the stuff we have zero control over. We just have to kind of go with what is in front of us. But please, I don't want you to feel like you have to go searching for the answers, because it's likely that I have sat in on some meeting or had some conversation with someone about those questions, so please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And again, if I don't have the answer, I will find it, or if I think I'm gonna tell you an answer that's not gonna be accurate 20 minutes afterwards, and I'll just say, just kind of sit tight and hold on, and we'll get more information as we go.
I I do have a question. This is more generic, but kind of relates to current events. If we have a policy that, say the federal government and the state of Maine are conflicting on their interpretation of the policy, are we required to follow one over the other, or does one override the other, or is it based on the certain type of policy? Like, do you have an answer to that?
Not a great one.
Okay. I know.
I think we will find out what the answer to that is pretty quickly.
Okay.
Because I think
It's more to,
what I will say is that we do have policies that are in line with state law, that are conflicting to federal law. And the one that I will just point out is the medical marijuana policy that we have. We have one because of the state policy surrounding medical marijuana. And of course, that's even changed since then, but at the time when we implemented the policy, medical marijuana was legal. It was possible for our students to have received a prescription where they needed to use medical marijuana, and we needed to have a mechanism to be able to follow those prescriptions. So we adopted a policy that was vetted and designed from Drummond and Woodson. We adopted it. Of course, marijuana is federally illegal. So I guess to your point, Keith, we do have a situation where we have some policies that follow state law that may not be in line with federal law.
And in other areas, typically like in healthcare, you always follow your local government before your state, before your federal. Just because some things are left up to it, but that's a great thing to think about is case by case, asking, what about this one?
yeah.
Because there may be exceptions.
And anytime we do that, is there possible ramifications from, there is. I guess I'll just leave it at that.
No, that's good. I wasn't even sure of the chain of command on that, and that makes perfect sense that some, even though it's illegal federally, we do have to make certain circumstances.
I think one of the hardest things is, we all have a certain opinion, but we have to follow the law.
That's right.
And
That's where it gets,
Which you've heard me complain about plenty of things that have come from the state.
What do you mean?
And I will still go with the policy.
Yeah.
It's following the law.
You don't have to love it, but you do have to follow the law.
Personally, I believe that our governor has absolutely nothing to stand on. And I would urge you to look at Brown versus Board of Education. State of Alabama made a law that prohibited black people from attending white schools. We all know how that wound up. If the federal has a law, it is supreme over any state law. And you can't violate the Constitution. That would be the only thing that should be able to stand. She's going to lose. And we're going to need to change our policy. And I would hope, but I don't think it will be the case, that we'll also need to change our marijuana policy. The reason is because there's some money in that. And I think it's disgusting, because I think that also should be legal, because there is a federal law against that. But we make too much money on that. And there are some Republican states that also make some money on that. But we will follow the law one way or the other. And I would never urge you to go out and think that you could go make your own law, violate federal or state law, because it is just a surefire way to get yourself in trouble.
what I will say again, we talk about this as administrators all the time, we talk with the teaching staff. It also pertains to board members and certainly to myself. You know, we have personal views, but at the same time, we do represent the RSU 25, and we have to make sure that we're not speaking on behalf, you know, of, we can't let our personal viewpoints become viewpoints of RSU 25. I just really could see media starting to reach out to people, you know, your constituents, they're gonna be looking for anybody to grab a soundbite. And we obviously we've kind of reviewed them all recently, which has been good. We have policies around what our job is as a board, as employees of the school district. again, I think it's just best if you could direct them to me, and then if we ever needed a statement from the board, then I would work with Tom as a board chair to make sure that we had something that was, I don't want anybody ever to be put out on an island, that's all, so.
All good on that one?
Yeah.
Next, we've got committee reports.
Alright, picture this, Thursday, February sixth, big snowstorm, so we were all virtual. I was a little late to the meeting because I was trying to drive home in the snowstorm, but Alicia helped me out and Keith helped me out, who was also trying to drive home, so.
I mean, I tried. They're like, yeah, just open the meeting. I'm like, oh, okay. How?
You did fine, you did fine. So during the meeting, we reviewed the minutes, approved the December meeting minutes, and then we had Aaron talk about a few new proposed BHS courses. An introduction to modern band course, a science experience class that would be kind of like a bonus science class for kids that were interested. And then also potentially bringing back the bridge course aimed at helping freshmen adjust to high school, which is all exciting stuff. We had a lot of discussion around those things. Then Christina talked about the University of Maine Rural Educator Resilience Network opportunity, which is just another layer of support for educators. It has 2 tracks, one for new teachers and one for veteran teachers. And then she announced that Friday, March 14th, we're going to have Dr. Katie Rybakova, did I say that, Bakova? Of Thomas College come and talk about The Elephant in the Room, which is her book that she wrote about media and screen time and its impact on adolescent mental health. So that should be a really exciting thing. It's sort of related to the Anxious Generation Book Club, but everybody's welcome. We're hoping it's a big community discussion. I think it's gonna be kind of on the earlier side, right? Like 5 to 6 maybe or something. Because she's a mom and has to get home to her kids, doesn't wanna let them scroll on the internet for too long. No, I'm just kidding, I made that part up. And then we didn't have Josh with us. So Christina kind of gave us a little bit of an update on drafting the Community Outreach and Aspirations Coordinator job.
Oh, yes.
Which was what we had just approved either last meeting or the meeting after that. And then we're gonna meet on Thursday, March 6th, from 6 to 7 p.m., hopefully in person, that's what we're planning on.
Any questions on curriculum?
Were we bringing that position to, I thought that was gonna be at this meeting.
It'll be the
Or was
next,
it not?
it's gonna be in March.
Oh, okay, so I thought it was, okay.
And we
Wanna make
did
sure.
discuss one more thing, sorry, I just noticed when you were asking your question. We did talk about the attendance due to illness. We had to report that to the CDC because we had quite a bit of people out ill.
And one thing that we did have on that, we have also been reporting in our Jewett School percentages, which was the one that was down, our 3-year-old numbers. And Nicole and I actually had talked about this. We keep track of this, so we want to know if the 3-year-olds are there. But we really should be counting them as our school, because they're Head Start students, they're not RS 25 students. So we've been including them in our percentages.
Oh, did that artificially bring it down?
It did bring it down some, it's still, they were low. I mean,
Yeah.
and it does, when you have a smaller school and smaller numbers, you lose, the percentage drops quickly, but that is something, adjustment that.
Finance committee met right before this meeting. We are at 52% used part of the budget, and other than debt service, we're there, and that's because we've already paid the debt, so. We also looked at the food service, where it was about minus 20 there, so we're about where we ought to be. If we're planning on a $40,000 loss. And we also talked about the senior food, and
we're thinking about keeping that going for a few more months to see if we can go along. Josh met with the town council, Foxborough, would like to see if we were able to keep that going. They're going to look towards how the repairs are in that program to see if they can do some help on help funding the repairs and keep that project going. And they're going to increase their price by $1 to see if that can also help raise some general funds there. Any questions on finance? Next, we've got policy.
Policy we did not meet?
They don't need, right? That's probably good since they keep changing all of these things.
Wait for the
So we're
dust
just
to
taking a
settle.
break.
Yeah.
Next, we got facilities and grounds.
Yeah, we didn't meet either because of inclement weather, but Anthony sent me an email basically touching on, upon what Josh started out talking about 2 inspections. And, yeah, that's about it. We're supposed to be meeting on March 13th.
And we have 2 custodians that we're bringing forward for nominations today, which will get us the full, the staff, which will be the first time this year.
What? Good.
And lastly, we have HCTC.
And because of the storm, HCTC did not meet, but we're meeting in March also.
All right. Well, don't forget, Skills USA is coming right up.
14th of March.
Oh, wow.
I think what we need,
Yeah.
I mean, just before that.
So go to
Scott,
Skills USA and then go to the talk on the.
Scott, can you explain the Skills USA just a little bit?
Well, it's a competition, and it's first a state and then it's national competition in all the different areas. And HCTC is usually well represented. We usually do it in Bangor for the regional. A couple of different places in Bangor. We didn't do it just at.
So
I've never gone to one. I guess people that have gone said it's a lot
Eastern
of
Maine.
fun. I know.
Eastern Maine Community College.
I've actually gone before. Yes, it's a competition depending on what school. Sometimes they'll run a local competition first across classes. But it's a lot of what they do is geared towards like trades. So they'll have like a video production test there. They'll do a whole automotive repair one. They do welding, they do building, they do IT, networking. Their standard for a cable termination is 3 minutes, so they have a whole,
There's a speech one.
yeah, oh yeah.
So they score all of them, and then students can earn
Gold medals, silver
silver
medals.
medals, and bronze.
Fun.
And then if they get gold medals, they qualify for nationals, and then they will fundraise to the people that, if
Nice.
there's a national competition for their area, not everyone has a national competition.
Right.
Then they will travel. So
Nice.
we've had students do very well.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're just very well, so.
Do we got anybody culinary going?
I don't know for this year. I mean, it's been a couple months.
In the past, we've had some
Yeah.
people who did particularly well in culinary.
We have 3 or 4 students in the culinary program right now, don't we? Yeah, so, they do a cake decorating one for culinary, so not everybody competes at Skills USA, like, it all depends on the competition and people's comfort level.
Right.
But
Old business, we have none. Yes, actually, thank you very much. It was very helpful.
I went to video production when I went to Tri-County.
Great. Next, we got new business. We've got some resignations and retirements.
Yes, so for resignations and retirements, we have Lacey McQuarrie, Assistant Principal Athletic Director at the middle school, Maureen Lugden, School Nurse, and Bill Everhart, Special Education Teacher at high school. For support personnel, we have Evelyn Smith, Custodian down at the Jewish School, and Jeremy Sawyer, Custodian at the middle school. And for our coaches and co-curricular there, Johanna Stiles, BMS Assistant Track Coach, because we just hired her as a high school assistant track coach, and she couldn't do both, so.
Oh, come on.
She's fast, but not that fast.
Yeah.
I would look for a motion.
I move that we approve the resignations with regret.
And a second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank
Josh, someone actually asked me about the nursing position. Is that part-time? Is that 20 hours?
That's full-time.
It is full-time, okay.
Well, full-time for.
I mean, it was
school-
full-time.
A school year, it's not, year-round.
Got it. For some reason, I thought we had 20-hour-a-week nurses. Was that a long time ago or did I
We used
make
to
that
have
up?
3 part-time nurses.
Yeah, that's what I
and now
thought.
we have 2 full-time.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
So, we are
I'm pretty sure this person lives in Glenburn, it's probably not even viable, but they asked, so I figured I would.
We did put out an anticipated opening, knowing that we had this resignation because Lorraine has taken another position at school, and so we'll be leaving as of March 7th, so we want to be able to get something in. Of course, hopefully we'll be doing interviews soon. It's likely they'll have, unless they're coming from another school, we'll have to get a 2-week notice for whatever employment they're working at, which will land right around where our next school board meeting is. We can bring them on as a sub until that school board meeting, because they would need your approval before we can offer them a contract. But yeah, we will be hoping to bring somebody, because they are sort of busy.
Yeah.
So it'll be very tough for Ginger to.
Well, they've got to maintain, oh no, that's probably you guys maintaining the hepatitis B.
Yeah.
On staff.
With the assistant principal AD, are you planning on posting that as a dual position again? Or do you have some time to decide and then repost it, or?
We still want to be, I think the intent initially would be to keep it as is. I think we've demonstrated that there certainly is a need for an assistant principal at the middle school. And pairing that with the athletic director position, I think makes the most sense right now. Certainly a conversation we can have as we go through the budget process.
And that's working out, that's not like a
No,
factor.
and, and Lacey was very honest, she's just looking to make a move outside of education. Got into administration really young, and is just looking for, and really has nothing to do, she likes the community, has enjoyed the school, and has been very upfront about it. And actually said that, the position itself is working, feels like it can be.
I just didn't know if you had to post this immediately to get candidates in time for all that stuff.
We will post sooner rather than later. We don't have to do it like tomorrow.
Okay.
But, by mid-March, we want to have it out there so that, again, to be fair to other schools, we could run, it has a trickle-down effect anytime you look to hire these positions. So, and we want to try to beat the rest of the people because it's not going to be the only assistant principal position out there. So.
Yeah. I think it should stay together, but I was just curious how. I think it's good to have it together.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to have two different people doing two different jobs or anything, but.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And next we have nominations.
All right, we have a long list of these here as well. So for support personnel, we have Callie Willett and Justin Davis, both custodians, the two positions that we had open. And Dana Gary, who's here, will be nomination for the BMS Media Specialist position that we had open up. We've had a long-term sub in there since middle of October, I want to say. Since Marianne retired or resigned. And then for coaches, we have Megan Simpson, BMS softball coach. Megan's here with us. Todd Freeman, BHS JV baseball. Lindsay Gordon, who was on the initial agenda as a volunteer, but has interviewed for the outdoor track assistant coach position. Brian Simpson, BMS softball volunteer, is here. Daniel Hopkins, BMS wrestling volunteer. Hannah Varnum, BHS robotics. Keisha Evans, BMS wrestling, and Mark Wardwell, BMS wrestling, and Jesse Gale, BMS wrestling. And then you have a whole list of returning coaches that if you want me to read them off, I can, but you know all these names because they're all in the same positions that they were here for last year.
I would look for a motion to approve all the nominations as a block.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I made the
Who
motion.
made the motion? Okay, gotcha.
I looked, but I guess I looked close.
You have to look very hard.
All those in favor? That is unanimous, thank you. I assumed
too tired.
that the knitting needles
I'm
were
tired
yes.
now.
All
Do we
right,
need a motion on the returning coaches also?
We do it with their annual appointment, so we did them all.
next we have consideration to approve the robotics team to attend the following competitions on provided dates and locations. February 28th to March 2nd, Falmouth, Maine. March 14th to the 16th in Lewiston. April 2nd to the 5th in West Springfield, Mass. April 15th to the 20th in Houston, Texas. Hopefully they'll get to go.
Yes, so as I I did learn the first two, they definitely will be going to, they're both in states, this year, which is actually, new. Usually there's one in state and then one is typically in New Hampshire, or Rhode Island. It's kind of rotated around the last few years. And then if they qualify, they go to the regional one, in West Springfield. And if they qualify for the regional one, they would go to the, World Championship. We've always just presented them all, kind of all at once, so that we don't have to worry about timing on the rest of them. But obviously, if they don't qualify for the other two, then they can go on the trip.
That would be shocking.
Do we have any idea how many students are involved in the robotics this year? You know,
It's
just roughly been about what it's been? Yeah, there's always a good number.
So would all 35 go to Houston?
No. So what we do for the local tournaments, we try to bring everybody, because we can take vans or buses, where, I mean, it's local, it's cheaper for us to be able to get them to go. We want them all to have the experience. It's obviously not as cost effective to send them to Houston, Texas, so
When
they're,
we went to Worlds, it was only like 20 kids last time, right?
yeah, so they have a point system that they establish, based on their role of the team, how often they show up to practices. You know, we're one of the few probably schools that have to have like cuts for the robotics team or tryouts for driving and for all the different roles into it. It's a really good problem to have, but it's no different. I know some people, you know, have a hard time to like, well, how can you not let someone go on a trip? They've been part of a club. It's really no different than a varsity sport. Like,
Is there a set roster?
They do, so they take, I think the final number was 19 plus the two coaches, so we sent 21.
An hours roster limit, or is it?
That's what we said.
Okay,
Yes.
it's not a national.
It's not a national one, but if you get too many more than that, it becomes a little harder to manage. And obviously there is a cost that goes along with doing that. So, and that's not something that's sprung on them 2 weeks before they go to World and say, hey, we've been tracking these points. When they go to the first informational meeting, the packet with all the point system is rolled out to them. So it's very clear as to how that order is.
And most of the kids take that very seriously, they
So
do.
so is there a reserve group too, who don't make the team, like a reserve?
So they're all still part of, and I mean, I've explained it well, they do all the local stuff, they work on the robot
Right.
every day. So all 35 are in the shop every day
Right.
working on it. But when you get to the travel,
Right.
you have your travel group.
It's like the
of
top
workers.
19 people.
And if one
By the
doesn't make
point
it or
system.
gets sick,
Yeah.
usually,
But it's tougher, like, cause plane tickets are in people's names. Right, so
Yeah.
like the traveling, it's
Yeah.
not as easy as just tagging
Yeah.
somebody in.
Yeah.
You know, just because of the traveling part.
I would look for a motion to approve those travels.
Well, I move that we approve the robotics team to attend the following competitions as listed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all those in favor? That is unanimous, thank you. Next, we have consideration to approve the VHS varsity cheering team.
Really, what happened?
Can I just make a motion to approve this right now?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all those in favor?
We better not discuss it.
There's no discussion necessary.
The only thing I will say on the original agenda, and on this one, it says 21st to the 23rd. They will be going down the night before,
Sure.
staying, but they will not be staying the second night. They will be returning that evening.
Late the 22nd.
Yes, so they will be staying the night of the 21st. They'll be competing on the 22nd. Theirs is in the morning. And then they will be returning after their competition.
But it might be late enough that it might be the next day, is that what they're thinking?
No, originally we thought that they were gonna we weren't quite sure when their competition was gonna be, because there's two groups that are going, but their group is the early group.
Which is good.
And we have to take two vans, and then there was a little bit of negotiating on like whether we were gonna need to do a second night or not. But we decided that we're coming back that night, and some families may decide to stay down another night, and they can sign their kids out just like they would in any other sporting event and do so.
Well, Tom is approved.
They'll be taking the van.
They'll be taking two vans down.
That's one more comfortable.
Yep.
We have no first policies to read. We have a second reading of policy for BHC, Board of Communications with Staff, CBI, evaluation of the superintendent.
Is where I run through the policy committee and brought For first reading, there's been no changes. We did have another policy committee to reflect on, but there was no changes that were recommended.
Look for a motion.
I move that we approve the policies as presented.
Second.
And we have a second. All those in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. And now it is time for administrator reports with Christina.
I'm gonna just warn you, I don't have cute videos of kids.
Oh.
It's no longer
Just
in my
going down.
wheelhouse. You know, so
Better
sorry.
give us some
I'm just
statistics
glad
on
he
positive.
brought Mr. Morrill is with me, so.
Yeah, he probably doesn't either.
Perfect.
Probably, maybe
brought-
two kids with computers.
When
He
we
did
both
bring the
saw our
chocolate.
names together, we're like, this is good.
This is very good.
You brought the candy.
He did bring the.
Oh, are you doing a tandem
Oh.
coordination? Can there be a song and dance? What are you doing?
Maybe.
Mr. Morrill,
Planning's everything.
Hey,
I think we work well together.
Sucking up as everything.
I learned from Josh.
I mean, I
No.
do steal candy from your office all the
A
time,
lot.
so.
Yeah,
You do
I
provide
do
candy.
need to refill it. Hold on. There we go.
Oh, sweet.
Okay, so my presentation are agenda items, so I'm gonna make this pretty easy for you. So I'm gonna share with you quickly, briefly, the two of the 4 curriculum documents that we're working on this year that are part of our review cycle. And then a little bit later, after Mr. Morrill's, I think we have agenda items for you to, if you choose to take action on hopefully approving these 2 documents. So the first one I'm going to share is the draft K-12 physical education curriculum document that all of our PE teachers have been working on this year with me. Megan offered to stay to be a part of this. I'm like, no, it's going to be fine, you can go. But she did work pretty hard on this along with Ed Hatch, John Gagan, and also Jess Carter, because we also have been working on the health curriculum, but you'll see that another night. I have to bring that to the curriculum steering committee. We're still working on finishing that up. But we do have the draft document for the K-12 physical education done. So what you have in hard copy, hopefully in your packets, I think, is a 1-pager. I like to do these 1-pagers for you so that you don't have to read like a 75-page document. You can just kind of see the highlights of what's going on, and then I can briefly show you, or as involved as you want to go, the actual document. But just to kind of outline it for you, the physical education standards, mean learning results standards, were signed into law, updated in 2021. And due to the, as I've been telling you about every content area, due to the COVID pandemic, districts were allowed to, some freedom to take the time they needed to update those. So we needed to do this, and we have this document ready. Not a lot of changes in the previous rendition of the learning results for physical education to what we have now. So we didn't have to really make a lot of changes, except for the fact that the document that our PE teachers were working from was a much older document, like 2010. I had shared that about some of our other documents too. So they were ready to have something updated. So we had a lot of conversation when we met a couple of times earlier this year about what we wanted this to look like. And because it's a different content area than, say, ELA or math, it just calls for a different level of specificity. We agreed that we would write something that would be for a brand new PE teacher, and it was great having Megan on this team because she is a new PE teacher to us. She came from a gen ed classroom position, went into PE, so she gave us a really good sense of what would you want or need walking into, like what did you wish you had at the beginning of this year that we're writing right now. So you'll find that we have strands that are common across K-12. There are 5 strands, motor skills and movement patterns, concepts and strategies, fitness education, responsible personal and social behavior, and then recognition of the value of physical education. So in grades K through 4, they have performance indicators specific to each grade level. That's pretty common with the mean learning results across the content areas. They tend to be very specific, kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, sometimes 5, and then it kind of gets, they're in spans or chunks. So like the middle school kind of gets lumped together. PE, because the people at the DOE that write these are different committees for every content area, so they have a different take on it as well. So the PE standards are written a little different than the other standards. What you'll find is K through 4 have specific expectations, and then when you get to the 5-8 band, there were 2 different levels. There was like a level 1 and a level 2, but it did not, the state of Maine did not designate, what grade levels those were. So our interpretation of that was Level 1 made sense for 5th and 6th grade, level 2 made sense for 7th and 8th grade, because it was the same skills, just kind of upping the ante a little bit. So that was the way we interpreted those levels. And then when we got to grades 9 through 12, that span of standards in the main learning results has 2 levels of difficulty. And so when the middle school PE teacher and the high school PE teacher got together and we looked at this, we determined that we do have a graduation requirement for everybody to take a PE class. And so what we would be looking for our graduation requirements for every student would be mastery of level 1 standards in that 9-12 band. And then our electives, so we do have some extra PE classes that kids can take, that would be where Mr. Hatch would push those kids to those level 2 expectations. And that just seemed to make sense when you look at the standards. So in our PE curriculum, because these are pretty broad topics that you could cover in any unit, you could do a soccer unit, you could do a badminton unit to cover these standards, we decided that it made most sense to create a list of resources that PE teachers could use that we've vetted in our district at the beginning of our document. And then later on, you would see vocabulary, terminology that we would make sure that our kids understood and learned in their PE classes. So it's kind of how we set it up. It's a little different than the other content areas. Performance indicators are listed in their appropriate places, and we've listed, like I said, the key vocabulary terms. So I'm just going to jump to the document, which you had in electronic form. So it looks a little bit similar when you kind of take a look at the overarching. You know, we wanted it to have the same look. It has a table of contents on the side, much shorter than the 120-page ELA document. We did an introduction where we just kind of described our work as a committee. The committee members are listed on here, and that we followed policy and procedure in the format that we used to create this. It wasn't something I created on my own. I'm not a PE teacher, so we worked together as a team. And we will come together once a year in the 5-year cycle just to kind of check in and see how things are going. And that's been working really well with the other content areas that have been done. So I've met with science, I've met with math, and I'm trying to meet with ELA, but we keep having snowstorms on Thursdays. But so I'm going to meet with ELA this Thursday. So we will continue to just kind of check in and see how this is working for us. And if we need to make any updates within that 5-year window, we will. But more officially, every 5 years, we'll take a look at it because the state is on that kind of a cycle as well.
And that will be done at the curriculum committee?
Yep, this has already been to the curriculum committee.
No, I'm just, these updates that you're doing.
Yes.
They will go through the curriculum.
It will, yep. So right now, when science and math met, we really didn't have anything we wanted to change. Things were going well. ELA has been working on theirs a little longer, right? So this is their 2nd year with their curriculum. So if there are any changes, we'll bring them to that committee. Good question. Okay. And so then here are those 5 standard strands that I just showed you on that 1-pager. And then here are the resources that we listed. So these are all clickable links for online resources that have been vetted. The Maine Department of Education has a PE section on their webpage with resources for PE teachers. We use PE Central a lot. A lot of school districts in the state of Maine use PE Central. Lots of resources, units, essential questions, resources, lots in there. We use Shape America. It's a typo already. So American should say America. We use Open Phys Ed. That's another place where we can get free units that they can use. And we already have the equipment, so it's easy for us to just pull units from there that are aligned. The state of Maine standards are aligned to national standards. So these are national websites, some of these except for the DOE. We also use FitnessGram, the Presidential Fitness Program, PE Specialist, Adapted PE. So sometimes we are doing adaptive PE courses for some of our special education population. And so we use the adapted PE material for designing those units to fit the needs of those kids. And then we have phys ed games, sport tools, and prime coaching as resources. We do use a couple of textbooks, especially at the high school level. So Mr. Hatch uses some textbooks that he pulls information from, so we have those listed. And then we also have the Maine Association of Health and PE Teachers site up here under other. So that's where we kind of put our resources instead of putting it under the standards, because we would have just been repeating ourselves under the standards. So how you'll see this designed is, this is the K2 span. So you'll see these are all of the expectations that you'll see, but these are kindergarten performance expectations, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and then the vocabulary terminology that Mr. Dagan will be making sure is introduced and practiced and taught for K2. And then if there's an assessment, we don't assess kids in the true nature of assessment at the elementary level for PE, right? It's more participation and understanding of concepts, so it's not like a true assessment, but he does do teacher observations and some checklists that he does for the kiddos.
How do you assess if you don't do assessments, how do you assess their knowledge of the vocabulary specifically?
So most of that is done through teacher observation, right? So if you look at his vocabulary, like his list, so if he's asking them to hop, to skip, to do those
Oh, and
things.
they're performing those
Yeah.
activities, they understand the vocabulary, okay.
Yep. So it's like a performance assessment.
Okay, yeah, no, I
Even though they don't see it as an assessment,
it's probably the best.
they think it's fun. And you will see vocabulary repeated because a lot of these standards are pretty repetitive. The way they're written are repetitive as well. And so we have one of these pages for each of the 5 strands for K2. So like this one, talking about heart rate and spatial awareness and like your body sweats. What does that mean? What is that doing for you? What is it about your breathing that changes when you're active versus when you're not active? So that would be in this particular strand. Being physically literate, applying knowledge, concepts. And then we have fitness education, so he gets into things a little more in detail, like increased heartbeat, breathing faster, speed, agility. You'll see the vocabulary for the different sections. I'm just gonna show you a few of these and then we'll jump to a different section. Responsible personal and social behavior, so soft skills, being a part of a team, sportsmanship, mindset, respect, cooperation, all of those things come into play. They're happening in other classes too, but it's a big part of what Mr. Gagan does in his elementary, and you'll see that in the 3-4 as well. See, self-control, all things that we want our kids to be able to do. And he does get into like active lifestyle, communication, self-esteem, building motor skills. And then so we can just click to like the 5A just to show you a little bit of the difference. So you'll see levels here, like level 1 and level 2. So level 1 would be what Mrs. Simpson's going to cover in 5th and 6th grade PE classes. Level 2 would be what she would cover in 7th grade. So she's getting into like more of the sports-specific vocabulary at the middle school, defense, offense, like practicing, what does that do for you? And then some of the specific terminology like choreography, count, tempo, stretching. And so she has a page for each of the concept areas as well. And then when we get down to 9 through diploma, you'll see the level 1 and level 2. And so as a committee, we decided that it would make sense for that level 1 to be where those graduation expectations would be. Or that course, right? So not necessarily the high school graduation standards for PE are at the end, and they're more overarching.
Could you make that a little bigger so there's some slight chance of you being able to read it? Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I would need to do that too, for sure.
The eyes aren't as good as they used to be.
Yeah, mine do it.
How many years do the high school students have to take PE? Is it 1 year, 1 semester,
They have to take 1 PE course,
and that's a semester?
yes,
So it's only a half a year.
right. Some of them choose to take more.
Right, but they have to take just, sure how old I am, we did it out 4 years. We got
did?
to do it all 4 years.
Yeah.
You had to climb a 30-foot tall rope too.
I did. With that
And was
little 1 inch.
Wasn't part of your PE like learning how to
You also
drive
had the
and
knot
stuff?
at the bottom.
At the bottom.
That was helpful.
Wasn't driver's permit part of that too?
Oh my goodness.
It wasn't for me.
Of course not.
Right,
I took Doug's in.
right, and then you had to learn how to drive a T-Bird, right?
Yeah, right.
Right, okay.
Any questions about the draft PE document or any sections you want me to jump back to?
But those are the graduation standards.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't a, like we were just talking about, if you must climb a rope in
No.
so many seconds.
No, on purpose.
Any of the rest of this, okay, all right.
Those are gone.
And, you know, Mr. Hatch looked these over, and these are pretty much the same as what they had before. They're a little condensed because the main learning results are a little more condensed than what they were in the past. But, I mean, he felt comfortable that taking the required one PE course, you would meet these.
Do they still do the mile?
I don't think that's any more, is it? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, the nice thing is we have 3 or 4 different PE courses and all of the different ones, whether it be team and individual sports, fitness for life, intro to personal training. Whichever one you feel like you're gonna have a better experience in, they're still gonna meet the graduation standard, so.
Walter thought he was put into fitness for life and almost had a meltdown. Almost started crying.
And if we ever choose to do, like, Mr. Hatch just brought in intro to personal fitness.
Yeah.
Last year was the first year that he did it. It's pretty easy to bring in a new course, that would meet these standards. So condensing these allows us to be, creative in our offerings.
A little more flexible. You know, think about those, like if you're going to take one PE class and it's going to be fitness or whatever it might be, if they're working on those level 2 standards, they're definitely meeting these, right? Because they're gonna meet it in just the regular PE class as well. Any other questions before I jump to art? I should have brought paint or something. We could have done paint. Next 5 years. 5 years we're gonna do art again. Okay. Well, a topic that I know even less about than PE, because I do have a little knowledge of PE. I am not an artist, so I rely heavily on our art teachers for the art curriculum, which we have an amazing art teacher team. So I have the same thing for you. I just have this one pager to kind of give you ideas on what the new document is. Visual arts. Visual and performing arts are clumped together in the main learning results. So if you go to the main DOE website, to the standards document, you're going to click on visual and performing arts, and you're going to get dance, music, art, theater, everything is all kind of clumped together. And so we had to pull apart the art standards just to work on the art section. There are 4 strands across the K-12 span, and each of those strands has like overarching K-12 standards in the art main learning results, and so they're over here. The team that wrote these at the DOE did not give them nice short little titles. Instead, they gave you like a sentence or a phrase. So there's like the A sections about, you know, developing artistic ideas and work and completing the work, and then you go to the B section and they're more like refining, analyzing artistic work. And then you get to C, and it's even deeper, right? Applying criteria to evaluate, interpret intent and meaning, perceive and analyze. So that's some pretty deep thinking. And this is across K-12, so it's gonna look a little different in a first grade classroom than it's going to look in Molly Brosman's classes. But we do have to make sure that we are doing these particular things across that span. And then in D, synthesizing and relating artistic ideas and works with societal, cultural, and historical contexts. So that's what the state of Maine has asked of us. The art curriculum is organized by grade level for K-8. That's how we chose to do this. It looks a little different than the PE. And then when you get to the high school, Molly took her high school art courses that she teaches, and she determined which standards were being covered in which of her high school art courses. So we do have a graduation requirement of a visual or performing art, so students can choose to take a music class or they can choose to take an art class to meet that requirement. So if they choose to take an art class to meet that requirement, we have art graduation standards, which are similar to what the PE standards look like, that anybody taking any of Molly's courses would meet through that course. And so that document, the entire document, it's a little longer, it's a little more involved. And so what the art teachers chose to do, I'm gonna make it bigger, sorry. Thank you for saying that, because I really can't see it on my screen either. So that's good. So the strands are here, like we had for the PE, but instead of doing just the overarching resources, which they did do, there are resources here that are clickable. They have textbooks, and these textbooks have links to them so they can access them online. And they also have lessons and activity banks that they have used and vetted over the course of the last few years. And then they also have Maine Art Education Association and the National Art Education Association has resources that are available. So similar to PE in that they put the resources here, but they also give you a little more detail in their sections. So there is at least one example of a unit, so a brand new art teacher walking into our art program would have at least one example that would be in that classroom of something that they could use that would meet that. Where it's art, the art teachers wanted to leave some creativity available to a new art teacher or someone that walked in with 20 years of experience. So that's why you'll only see some of these one unit. Margaret Jones has been an art teacher for us for a very long time. And so some of her, she has many units that are in there that she has used that teach, that would cover these standards. You'll see those there. And what we really kind of decided as a team was, don't put something there unless you're planning on having it available in that classroom, right? Because we're really trying to design documents that someone new coming in would pick up and be able to actually use. So these are units and activities that she does with her kids that meet those. And so you'll see that in this document, K through 8 have their own. So if we jump to like a 6th grade, Hannah Bailey, amazing art teacher as well. We have great art teachers. Hannah's very detailed as well. And so she gave you lots of information on things that she does. So this is like kind of, it is fun to look at the art stuff even though I'm not artsy. But one of her activities that she has this particular 6th graders do is designing a system for recycling by creating recycled bottle fairy houses, discussing environmental conservation while caring for art material, tools, and equipment. So that's one of her units that she does with 6th grade that meets this particular standard, performance in computer. And they also went the route of PE, so PE actually went after art, so they kind of copied some of art's work. So they listed a lot of vocabulary in here as well that you'll see that they cover with their kids. So 6th grade has a lot of detail. So here's an analyze standard that she does. So she has a unit that she covers with them where they analyze artwork from different time periods and different spaces, different locations, looking at the way it was presented or preserved, and they compare and contrast those. And our kids take art through middle school every year, so they have it 5 through 8. I'm just showing you bits and pieces. I don't know if you want to see something
So,
specific.
could I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, on the unit,
Mm-hmm.
what if we lose a teacher and we get a new teacher and they don't want to build fairy houses? For
Yes.
instance, they want to do some other structural
Yep.
piece, but
Yes.
something that's different.
Yeah.
I don't know what, I'm not an
Right.
artist. But would we have to go and change the curriculum? Would we force
No,
this
these are
person
just
to continue to
samples.
build fairy houses
No.
because that's what we do around here? or-
No.
My nephews love making fairy houses.
And I've got nothing against fairy houses
Right.
either, it's just, you
Yeah.
pointed that one out and I was able to remember it,
Yes,
so that's
that's
why I'm
good.
saying that one.
Yeah, no. So these were, we were trying to like look at this, I keep telling them, look at it at the lens of a new teacher, right? Brand new teacher might need an idea, might not, to cover that particular standard. So we've given them a resource bank at the beginning of the document with all kinds of units and examples of all of these standards and things you could do. And then we give them a sample unit that will be in that classroom, if you choose to use them.
Okay, so these are sample units, not a you must do.
Yeah,
Exactly,
it's
So it's
just
not like
that
a,
that
it's
fits
not
all
like
the
a math
criteria.
curriculum
Yeah.
where you're like,
right,
you're
No.
going to do this
Right.
proof in geometry
Yeah.
or else.
Very
Yeah.
different.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's just that that particular example hits all the necessary components.
right. It fits.
The wealth is very much wasn't
And then Molly's section, for the grades 9 through 12, she did a section for every one of her classes, right? So she has a class called Art Appreciation that you might take. And so Art Appreciation covers certain standards. So she has her vocabulary here, and she has samples of units that would be in that classroom, should you choose to use them in art appreciation. She also has a syllabus, like, that kind of outlines all of this as well, but we don't want to put all the syllabi in here. And then like her printmaking class, you can jump to that section and see the units. So some of the things that she brought this up, like some of the things that she covers in these certain classes may not be tied to like all the standards, but there's still things that should be in that class. It's just the way different high schools offer different art classes. Not every high school offers printmaking. So she just picked the standards that align to the main learning results that fit that particular class. But in all of her classes, all of the art standards are covered, if that makes sense. So there's none that are missing. We have a class that offers all of them. And she does do 2D design, 3D design, and she teaches an honors art class as well. And so then if I jump to the Bucksport High School art graduation standards, you can see that they are fairly vague, right? But they're going to get covered if you choose to take a visual art class as your visual and performing arts credit.
And you can meet that same standard or credit if you're like in the welding program.
Yep.
And you choose to do a sculpture
Mm-hmm.
through your welding class. It actually gets measured on the same rubric that we would do in the 3D. So Mrs. Brosnan would provide that, she would critique it, and if it meets the same standards, then they can use that as a, so again, just allowing those students to have some flexibility in their course load.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, welding is an art.
Right.
The student making a sculpture out of metal might not even realize he's making art.
Right, exactly.
Doesn't this look cool?
Yeah. We also have, if you think back to the presentation that Mr. Ward did with the HCTC, the crosswalk. So there are ways that our kids can meet these graduation standards in certain CTE programs as well, not just welding, but others.
Music also counts as
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we have visual and performing arts. So
Right.
your performing arts would be have band chorus.
Mhm.
So if you take a band or a chorus, you don't have to take an art class.
Again, it's one semester.
One semester, yeah, or depending on, like band is all year long.
Right.
Right.
And chorus is all year long, so, but it's one credit.
It's one credit.
Does that apply to phys ed and athletics?
No.
Then
Extracurriculars cannot be used to get core credits. But industrial arts could count as a fine arts credit, so there are, that's what makes these graduations, they're graduation standards, but you may not ever meet these two if you're in band.
If you're in
Right,
band.
and that's how you're gonna get your fine arts credit. You will not meet these credits, so like, we have graduation standards based on your pathway when you go
Exactly.
through high
Yeah.
school.
That's kind of like on our one pager, like, so, trying to get it so that you can. So down here, right, so if a visual or performing arts credit is required, but if a student chooses to take a visual arts class for this requirement, then they would look to meet those graduation standards. And when you see the music curriculum's not done yet, but we'll bring that to you later this spring, when you see that document, you'll see music graduation standards or requirements, and that would be if you were taking that pathway for this particular credit. Does that make sense?
And to fulfill your art requirement, it's one of those two
One credit.
paths.
Or industrial arts.
Or industrial arts, but industrial arts uses this path as its.
No, they'll have their own set of graduation standards. because
Okay, so they
industrial-
don't have to meet these outlying criteria, I thought, I
These-
misunderstood.
No.
I
No,
thought you
they
said
will.
with the welding thing.
Well, so welding would meet these ones, but
Oh.
if you're in an industrial technology class, where
No.
you're doing like wood shop type stuff, you're gonna have.
That's not.
Right.
That's not those ones. They'll have their own industrial technology graduation standards, but it meets the fine arts
But it meets the
graduation
fine-
okay.
requirement,
All right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Kind
It
of.
does if you tell me, I'm
Okay.
willing to believe you. But we don't have, like, ages ago, we had like some other third pathway, I think it was called humanities or something. I don't remember.
We do not have to gain any
Okay.
requirement.
None of that, okay.
And back to that PE, if I remember correctly, because we're trying to learn the crosswalk really well for CT, I wanna say criminal justice,
Law enforcement did, yeah,
yeah, meets the PE.
because they have the physical fitness test through their
Yeah.
program, so.
Yeah, that's right, that costs.
So if you're a student in that CTE program, you may or may not take phys ed with us. won't be a requirement starting next year. Most kids are gonna choose, but if they didn't, it will meet that requirement moving
Do you
forward.
get an actual grade then, or just a pass fail?
So you
Just
get,
credit,
it
but
meets
no-
the requirement, so you want to, because again, when you take a CTE course, you get 4 credits. So one of those becomes a physical education credit, attached to it. Whatever grade you get in law enforcement becomes that
That grade?
that
Okay.
grade. So,
Oh, okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ward, but I feel like culinary, right?
there are,
For the fine arts,
yeah, because of the cake
Yeah.
decorating and.
yeah. I mean, that's all kind of, it's new to us,
Plating
it's going
food,
into
I mean, all that
effect
is-
next
Yeah,
year,
there are.
yes, that is the one that would meet that, so you could meet that requirement through your culinary arts program.
I think it's, culinary arts is what it's called.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
And
decorating, right?
band extra.
It is an art.
Yeah.
So is there like an introductory art class to high school that just covers graduate, like, or do they have to take something advanced like 3D or printmaking or anything, like, do we have just a regular class offering?
2D design is a basic.
Oh, okay.
3D design
That's
is
what a lot of kids take.
And I think a lot of
2D
kids
and
take
3D.
the art appreciation too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's-
Okay, so
That's a pretty
I'm just thinking
hands-on.
of kids that aren't very
Yeah.
artistic, that still need an art credit.
Right.
There
And
is
drawing and
something
painting,
for,
that's
okay,
kind of
okay.
one that.
Well, I
The
think
ones
that's
there are.
what's nice about art appreciation is you kind of
That's what I
learn
would need.
about art,
Yeah,
but you don't actually have to
Okay,
demonstrate.
good, yeah.
right.
I just wanna make sure we were covering like, you know, cause I can't even draw a stick figure,
No,
like,
me
I would need something just.
Really? Really?
The only
It's
advanced,
bad.
the only advanced course that they have for art, unless I'm wrong, Mr. Ward, unless something's changed, would be honors.
Honors art.
Oh, okay, so.
All the other ones just
Are not.
require an introductory.
I didn't know.
Now you
Okay.
can see less than introductory, I mean, greater than introductory quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're, I mean, if you come to any of our art shows, they're fantastic
Oh,
from a
absolutely.
basic course. You have a wide variety of skills.
One other question, and these might be classes that don't exist anymore too. We had like a CAD class, does that like fall into the industrial arts regime? Or
That is an elective.
it's just an elective, that doesn't count for anything? And then we had one that was something about like digital photography.
Like on the what?
That is a fine arts graduate.
That one counts as, that would be in this,
Yes.
okay.
Not necessarily under these graduation standards, but it would
Right.
count towards to meet this
It
requirement.
would count towards this requirement.
Credit.
So they can show their proficiency in all different ways.
Yeah,
Yeah, the idea is to have as many, when you get to high school, to not pigeonhole anybody into one class, right?
Right.
So if you don't wanna do team sports and you wanna do, just learn how to have lifelong physical fitness plans. You're still gonna graduate and not have to play indoor soccer. Right, that's the idea.
Fitness for life.
If you don't wanna be fit for life, if you have a
You play indoor soccer?
tremendous fear of that, then you stay away from that course, I guess. Never seen a reaction before like that. It's like, that
maybe
sounds
he should
fun.
come today, I guess that's.
I did bring him to Tabata once, Tabata boot camp, and he made it through 40% of the class.
Do we have any other questions? No. On our presentation? Okay, that should be very helpful when we get to voting on them.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Should we review the dates before we go into executive session? So that-
Oh, we still have.
We still have Jim.
Oh,
We also should let
Don't you
Jim
remember
Wall
you
talk.
were
I see.
there?
While he's coming up, I'm asking.
I think, yes,
We will receive, we will review the
I think we
calendar
did that
announcements
together.
before we.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
With both of us.
Thank you for the candy, Christina.
I know,
Oh
I
my
understand
goodness.
that.
Sorry, getting grief over here.
So this thing will get school. So fast.
Is it too fast for you?
Well, I wish I was still teaching, because I was able to keep up with it. Now that I'm not, I can't keep up with the technology. I just can't keep up with it. They have different terms and I don't know.
You gotta start doing crosswords, Scott.
I do the Sudoku, I do.
Crosswords.
That's what I can. Oh, well,
I should teach you how to knit.
would even be hard.
All right, behind curriculum, we're gonna do a little journey down cybersecurity. We've had a long journey over the last 8 years. I assumed the head position for technology back in 2017. And if you were around then, you may recall some of the details we'll have in here, because it was a little bit of a rocky start. So the first thing I want to share with you is why we talk about cybersecurity all the time. And that is because of stuff like this. This is a live map of cybersecurity attacks, slowed down so we could read them, if you can see this at all. And you'll notice some patterns as we see in here, is that education is the top attacked industry. So it's no longer government, it's no longer private businesses. Education is very well known, as we've discussed, to have the least amount of security with the most amount of data. So these attacks are happening right now. And you will notice a pattern here is that they're originating from the United States. Oftentimes, think cybersecurity, we think of bad actors trying to come to us.
But not all specifically from Kansas, right?
Not
That's just
specifically.
because it's in the middle of.
That looks like Nebra-
Some
that
would
looks like
say they try to
Nebraska.
isolate it. What you also see in the pattern, as we mentioned the political climate earlier, is that Washington DC becomes an attack zone for in-country and out-of-country, which isn't uncommon, but it's escalated over the last 30 days.
Well, there goes.
The reason why the United States tends to be an attack point is that we have the greatest infrastructure. We have the highest bandwidth, we have the most providers. It's very common that most people have a digital device.
What is a red one versus a yellow one?
Yeah, so that's the type. Malware
Oh,
would be
yeah.
red.
Okay.
So red is a software package or system trying to do bad actions. Purple's not even on the chart, so yellow would be exploit. And yellow is kind of what we're gonna get into a little bit later today, is that exploit is basically, we learned that Windows or Mac or cell phones have a hole. So now everyone starts targeting that hole. So this is a list, because now you can track it because you know it exists. And that's mostly what you see. And why you attack exploits, that's how you get on the inside of a system without having to install any software. And you can see here, we've got attacks going against Japan.
What generates that? Would it be satellite or what?
This is Checkpoint Security. So there's many large cybersecurity vendors, Checkpoint, Fortinet, Malwarebytes, and they gather their data and then share it out. They've reset their day, they have a different time zone than we do. This is up to about 16 million when I started today. That's about average, about 16 million cyber attacks a day across the country.
Because they can see them happening, or are
Right.
they able to block them? Is that?
So that's where we're going, thanks for leading into that path.
I'm
Is the world, right, at different levels, is gonna block that. Like you'll notice, some stuff come out of China or towards China. China does not receive the attacks very often because they filter so heavy what can come in. It's very hard to attack China on an espionage level, or in our case,
Oh, it
tends-
just happened.
Right, what's going China's got this huge population and tends to be, and see they're jumping over hitting Japan, is China has filters out so much to begin with. They only allow so much through. So if you haven't found an exploit, or yellows, to get into China, you're pretty much not gonna make it as it is. So I just wanna show you what's going on as we sit here and why we keep talking about cybersecurity. In Maine, I brought up some events, I'm not gonna go over word for word, but back in 2023, the state of Maine uses a tool called MoveIt, which is able to move large amounts of data. That was found to be infiltrated, and all the Maine data was exfiltrated, which means it was taken somewhere else. So Maine was able to recover and say, hey, probably been affected, here's some security monitoring, or credit monitoring. Ransomware happens in Maine. Herman, 2023, ransomware, just after the tech director took over. Bonnie Eagle in 2019. Brewer Schools 2017, they paid the ransom to get their data back off of a single server. RSU 25 in 2017, that's a rocky start that we had. A power outage saved us and shut down the ransomware. We were running backup, so we reinstalled and pulled it back within a day. So that was eye-opening, that's where I started down the journey of going, okay, this needs to be a focus. Up till 2017, we had one big open network, and we were just basically, does the iPad connect? Yes, let's move to the next thing. Now it's all about the security level before we worry about the endpoint devices. Power School's a big one, I think we brought it up here in January, December. 33,000 students' data was exfiltrated, taken out, as well as unknown number of staff, and possibly other ones that we don't know about. January 2025, South Portland's firewall, they were locked out of their own firewall by an exploit through their system called FortiGate. So someone came in, changed their password, they couldn't get in. compromised email. As of today, we have received 9 compromised emails from other Maine school districts asking us to enter credentials to receive a message. Those I have to go look for. So that's us. That's 9 in the week. So I narrowed it down.
Do you send like phishing scheme tests to staff?
Yes.
Just to see if they'll click?
We do. At least once per year, possibly more. I don't divulge that, but possibly more. We do fish testing. And we'll talk about exactly why we do that a little bit later. And I'm not gonna take a lot of time going through, I'm gonna try to go through pretty quick. So in our district, what we're trying to protect is 1,500 users that are all over the place, right? We've got remote students and remote pathways, we've got teachers at home right now, at home on their own home networks, which I can't protect, so I gotta protect the endpoint. 2,500 network devices, 44 data systems in 7 buildings. But 24/7, 365 is our goal and what we need to do to protect those. Our journey, I mentioned 2017, we had a ransomware happen, one big open network. And the reason why I bring us on a journey is many of you here have been sitting here the whole time with me. Some of you have not. And every step, every major threshold we meet, we bring on the school board. We keep you updated. At no point should you seem blind in our cybersecurity, what we call posture, where we're able to be, where we stand for defense. 2018, we did a huge infrastructure. We replaced our firewall to something big enough to hold all our traffic. We updated the network. We started student data privacy. Up to that point, we relied on curriculum to vet their software, or teachers hopefully were just not doing bad things. Now, any piece of software that includes a login or can see our devices has to be approved through the system. It goes through technology for security and curriculum for impact on curriculum. So we started that in 2018. 2021, we made our human investment. We started training all our staff at least once a year. We're now up to twice a year. They do a full training towards the beginning of the year when we come back to school. And then right about now, we put out a little 15-minute reminder, what's new? What's the newest thing we need to make sure our staff know? We also, around Christmas time, around the holidays, release optional trainings, which they can get contact hours for, that talks about buying online, newest scams against you, trying to protect themselves, because if they get impacted, that carries over to us. Whether it's a mental health when they come into us, it's the device they're using. We've had people had information taken and that say, we're gonna call your workplace and tell them we found this on your computer, just because they've been able to exfiltrate that information or get their contact information. So we do have some optional training for staff as well, so if they want to become more involved, they can. Cyber planning was a big thing as well. If we had a cyber attack right now, we have a method to mitigate that. And then 2025, which kind of stirred this whole thing, is we're now onboarding what's called a SOC and a NOC. There's no test after this. We're almost quasi-military, so we love our abbreviations, and I'll explain what those are in a minute. So the importance of cybersecurity is, why do we keep bringing this up? Why is it a big issue? It's not just about having data taken out. It's not just about the interruption of the day. It's about all these components. Our role is to deliver education. We need to protect data because we have the biggest troves of non-exposed data, because we have so many youth in our system. So we're very aware of what data we collect. We don't store social security numbers in a digital fashion here. We don't store birth certificates, social security cards. We don't store any of that stuff. We see it, we give it back to them, we destroy it, whatever we need to do to make sure we don't put it back. RSU operations, our HVAC system, our sports system, we stream through Huddle. We do scorekeeping. Pretty much everything we do now is based on our network. Personnel efficiency. Since 2017, we have 1 less personnel in my building, more devices, or in my department rather, more devices and more responsibility, and we're more aware of situations. And this is where I'll ask Katie Gorley's assistance. 3 years ago, they peeled out cybersecurity. So if something did happen, your coverage used to be just part of your clump policy. That is now a separate policy. It's an addendum to our insurance. And we have a full questionnaire. What do you do? How do you back up? When do you do it? When do you test it? Who's your provider? What's your methodology? Do you have plans? Because we've had this journey since 2017, we do very well in that section. Last year, the year before, Mr. Bluthie was informing me there was 2 districts that weren't going to be able to get cybersecurity insurance at all through our supplier, because they weren't at a base level. So we communicate, we train, we share it around, we just cyber safe as we get. But that's the big thing, what underlies it. It's dollars, it's operation, and it's people's data we're trusted with. So the big things we're going to talk about today, and again, I'm going to buzz through this pretty quick, a SOC and a NOC. So basically a SOC is a security operations center. That means that all of our devices, as we deploy them, now go to a vendor, so they can see what's going on. So if they see that my laptop has 4 users logged in that are trying to reach other computers, they can notify me and isolate this device. This device is no longer a threat, and if it's not something that we're concerned about, we turn it back on. But the important part is that there are employed individuals that can see that information. Now, as I say that, I just told you we need to protect data. So what they're seeing, when I say they're seeing data, they're seeing what's called telemetry. And Abby can help me with this one. It's basically the heartbeat of this computer. There you go, it's exactly what it is. It's the heartbeat of this computer. What's signing in, what's the power level, what networks did it connect to, what software's running. They can't see what's in my Word document, they can't see my pay stub, but they can see the underlying details of what this machine's doing. So with that, I'm gonna go to NOC, which is just the Network Operations Center. We have a vendor that's watching our network, because we've always had a firewall at the front. We can prevent stuff. But if something's inside our network going building to building, we had no way to know about that. So I'd like to relate this to, I was trying to figure out how to pull in an example of the impact of these things. Anyone ever been involved in a food recall? Like Hamburg or anything like that from a vendor at all? They put out these notices and go, hey, if you got batch 184, you might be impacted. You have to know, one, that was recall, and 2, if you had batch 184. Whereas if I say today that Mars Candy Twixes have been recalled, I know, Abby, where's your Twix?
Oh, it's in my purse. I thought there might be a problem with it, so I
That was
put it
good.
away.
That's what we would call isolation. Abby was ahead of us. So you're gonna have your Twix.
Somebody in it.
There you go. I'm glad you did. You're isolated. So now I know that there was a problem. My software said, these are the fingerprints on it. Look at Abby, we recovered it, she's good to go. He's eating it, he's isolated, he's off the network till we do a scan. That's what my SOC and NOC does, but I don't do it, they do it. The system does it, the software does it, and we have, I'm just gonna give you a candy.
He can have it if he wants.
He's already
And we have trained cybersecurity
I reported it as phishing.
that are doing that for us. So that's what SOC and NOC is in the whole. If we had the same thing with a network type device, it would be the same thing. They can isolate the device, they can shut off our switch stack, they can shut off that component of the network, let me know what I want to do. But the important part is 24/7, 365, they take first action. And I wanted to share that with you because this is huge. I never thought these 3 tools, NOC, SOC, and SIEM, seems geeky, we won't go there. So I didn't think we'd ever deploy these tools inside our district because the cost for this was astronomical. But as the importance has come up and the focus on education has come down, we talked about Red Rover in our finance committee focused on education. And we're finding that there are a lot of companies that are willing to launch towards us and take a lot of clients for lesser money because they can repeat the business. So the vendors we're working with in these 2 cases, one's out of New Hampshire, and they're a very good education partner. And the other one's a very large organization, and they want to basically have the entire education sector. So they've given us phenomenal pricing. That's my presentation for you. If you have questions, you can throw them at me, but I wanted to let you know that your guidance, your approval of budget, and your continued involvement is why we're able to be where we are. There aren't many districts, I don't care how big they are, that can say these tools are deployed in their district.
Do you ever just watch that attack map?
Yeah, so 4 different ones to compare them and see which one I think is more accurate. This is the one that I call more dumbed down because it's set so you can follow it a little bit better. You can speed up and control to the left. There's a 3D interactive map, which is really cool, but it's not with bright flashing lights. Because you're like, whoa, I cannot understand what's going on there.
Wow.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we've got review and possible adoption of K-12 physical education curriculum. And that has just been presented to us. Does anyone have any further questions? Or should we just make a motion to approve?
I move we adopt the K-12 physical education curriculum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And then we have the same for the art curriculum. We look for motion.
I'll move that we adopt the K-12 art curriculum.
Second.
All those in favor? That is also unanimous. Thank you.
You know, your name is the hardest one to write.
And we're going to jump over 9
He has a little
so that we can do the calendar and announcements.
Yeah, that's
Curriculum Committee will meet on March 6th, 6 o'clock, central office.
Yep.
Policy Committee is not meeting this month. Finance Committee is meeting on March 18th, 5:30, right here. School Board will also be on March 18th at 6 o'clock right here. Facilities Committee will be on March 13th, 4 o'clock at Plain Auditorium.
Is that where it's gonna be, or is
No,
that just
that's a
a?
mistake. Sorry,
Okay.
that'll be in central office.
In central office, sorry.
What is that?
That's my fault.
Facilities.
Facilities.
Because we met the month before that.
Right, yeah,
Oh, that's
I just
okay.
didn't change it on the previous copy.
And Aspire will meet on March 6th, 5 o'clock, central office.
And then I think,
Budget?
we do here, we just talked about our first budget workshop, so we can start getting those on the calendar.
On Mondays.
I know that we had talked about in our other subcommittee meetings about like trying to target Mondays for budget, just because we have negotiations can't happen on Mondays, for the people involved with that. And it kind of works around the Thursdays for other subcommittees.
Does Monday work? If Monday works for you.
How early could we do it? Cause I have Mondays off, but I also play volleyball on Monday nights in the spring. That's starting up soon.
What time do you have volleyball?
6, 7, 8, or 9 is the games. So I don't know I don't know what people work until. You work until 5?
Yeah, I can't get here before 6.
Okay.
so.
So, but if that's what works, and I will just try to figure it out. Cause it won't be every Monday that we'll be meeting anyway, but.
Can we push our first budget meeting to the 10th?
I think I would like to get the first one done sooner rather than later, just so we can get some direction in terms of.
He's gonna need some time.
Yeah.
This isn't a one meeting experience.
Yeah,
No, I understand that, there's just collective bargaining and Aspire curriculum that week already,
Yeah.
don't kill me.
I mean, you don't have to come.
What do you wanna look
And
at,
if
the
there's-
third? Cause I've got Masons and an MSMA meeting that day.
we were looking at the third. I was hoping to look at the third, just in terms of, and that first one is not a super long meeting.
The 3rd is right before our volleyball starts.
Is, it would just be us presenting draft one, and kind of going a broad overview.
Yeah, I think if a couple people just can't make it, I'd rather
I can
have
make
have the meeting just so that we can get the ball rolling. And then we can catch those who couldn't make it up to speed in the next meeting, instead of waiting a whole other week.
So we'll plan on March 3rd, 6 o'clock, is that what I heard?
Yeah.
And that would be right here in the library,
And then negotiations, next meeting is
Thursday.
It's this Thursday,
Correct.
and that will be at Central Office.
Not tomorrow?
Thursday.
Sweet, got tomorrow off.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing, I did.
Just Thursday. I double checked with a couple of them. Did you have Thursday? There we go. All right.
I have Thursday.
I've got to get my wife and
Yeah.
daughter from the airport, so
Oh,
it's good
good.
for me,
Yeah.
it's Thursday. Yeah. All right, that is our calendar announcements. Next, we will move to executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Section 4056D for discussions relative to labor contracts.
So moved.
Second? We have a motion and a second, all those in favor? That is unanimous, thank you.
back from executive session, I would look for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a
Alright.
second, all those in favor? Good night, everyone.
Oh, well,